Okay, we got a lot to get through right now if we're going to get through 10 years in 20 minutes. So I'm Kevin Allocca, I'm the head of culture and trends at YouTube, and today we're going to look back through a lot of the big memes that you may have remembered or that you maybe forgot you remembered from the last 10 years. But the idea is to try to see what we can learn from each of those things and what each of those moments sort of taught us about how web video was evolving during that time period. We're going to start all the way at the very beginning with the first video ever uploaded to YouTube, which is me at the zoo in April of 2005.
All right, so here we are on the elephants. The cool thing about these guys is that they have really, really long fronts, and that's cool.
This is one of the co-founders of YouTube. It was this very ordinary moment captured on what was an otherwise very ordinary day. And after the site went live, when people first started to capture things, they actually started to capture things that were slightly more unusual everyday experiences. And the early viral stars were people like this. These were known as the Back Dorm Boys when this video came out. And like many of the early videos that were recorded in what was the most accessible setting, it was captured in a dorm room. And in general, what we decided to create at that point in YouTube's history were things that were very real and accessible. And that's why so many of the early videos that really resonated with people were these kind of amusing snippets of everyday life. You know, these were the ordinary depictions of our human experience at their most silly or at their most adorable. And even to this day, the most viewed non-music video on YouTube of all time is one of those personal videos. Of course, people started to really quickly get very creative with what they were doing and very innovative, but it was a kind of accessible innovation, right? It's the kind of creativity that's driven more by ingenuity than it is by artistic skill or production. And viral hits like Daft Hands took off. And props that you could buy in any store, like Diet Coke and Mentos, helped create one of the original viral phenomenon that anybody could reproduce at home. There are more than 40,000 Diet Coke and Mentos videos on YouTube right now, including this very popular one from the Slow-Mo guys, who you guys will be hearing from later today. Oh, the hair back there. And while it wasn't very apparent at first, we soon realized that these things had incredible power in our culture. The first video that did 100 million views was the video that was the first one that was really instantly recognizable for a large percentage of the internet using population. And so very early, there were many talented people in the creative community that were starting to see that there was something really new happening here and that there was something interesting to be done. The first video to reach 1 million views, it's arguably the first viral video, was not from someone's dorm room, it was actually from Nike. This was called Touch of Gold, and they shot it with Ronaldinho, who was massive at the time. And it ignited this really huge debate about whether it was real or fake. And so no one understood this at the time, but Nike was kind of messing with this new world where everything was becoming based on what was tangible and real in the digital sense. And that truth of the communication was adding this layer of relevance and connection that was really new. And so it also brought us that same thing brought us one of our first major channels, which was Lonely Girl 15. That's a web series that started in 2006 and was revealed as fiction several months later, to the shock of a lot of fans, because they had developed these new behaviors that valued truth over fiction. And for its creators, the Lonely Girl creators, this budding kind of social nature of video created the perfect environment to conflate those two things. And so other personalities started producing video constantly, and right after Lonely Girl, and this whole new era of channels and content creators emerged that would inspire an entire generation. Hank and John Green, the Vlog Brothers, they were some of the early personalities trying to figure out the web video space back in 2007. And they started out by just making videos that were a correspondence to each other.
Hello, John. By now you have received my message that we will no longer be communicating through any textual means. No more instant messaging, no more emailing. Only video blogging.
And their earlier videos like this sort of reflect the novelty of what web video was at the time.
Good morning, Hank. It's Thursday, January 4th. I'm standing on top of Little Pisgah Mountain in North Carolina.
That was actually recorded on Wednesday, January 3rd. But you'd have no way of knowing. I believe that's what they call movie magic.
Of course, they're now two of the biggest media personalities on the web, and web video is not a novelty anymore. This is John Green at the premiere of the movie adaptation of his mega popular book, The Fault in Our Stars, talking about what he thinks people don't understand about what he does on YouTube.
They don't understand that it's where real people really connect to other real people, which is the future of media. The future of media is not like performers connecting to an audience. It's people connecting directly to people, and YouTube has obviously been very good to me, but I really believe that it only works as long as I stay authentic to my relationship with my audience.
In the early days, it was really clear that there was real power that lied in this ability for people to connect with people and to create authenticity with audiences, even when that authenticity was strange or annoying.
Hey, it's Fred! And today's a really good day because guess what? I'm meeting a new friend. Her name's Bertha. Anyone with the name Bertha must be pretty cool.
This wasn't what people were used to, and it was confusing them. Fred became the first channel to reach 1 million subscribers with videos like that, and we got our first taste of the power of the creator. And that's something that would later come to define the entire platform, but at the time it was weird. And even more confusing were these niche genres that started to emerge. Leveraging this burgeoning concept of channels were all these strange and diverse communities that were very passionate about somewhat obscure things, like trains, for example.
All right, look at that, a 1953 E8. Woo-hoo! Oh yeah, listen to that bell. Yeah, listen to that bell. Oh, take a look at that. Oh my God! Woo! Listen to that horn. Oh my God! Oh, she's beautiful.
And so what this started to tell us was that when you no longer have to rely on maximizing the reach of an older broadcast technology, you could have these super passionate niche communities that in aggregate at a global scale could be quite sizable. And there was also this opportunity to innovate in the types of content that people were willing to consume. Because weird didn't actually equal bad, it was just that with all these diverse audiences being served in so many unique ways, our ability to fully wrap our heads around the entirety of the content ecosystem the way that we used to before became impossible. And so these massive new genres emerged, like fashion and beauty, or education and tutorials, or gaming, and they grew at these unforeseen rates. The top search query of last year on YouTube wasn't a music video or a comedy clip, it was a video game.
First I opened my eyes, then I felt such a strange breeze. I had traveled to a world made of blocks, totally unbeknownst to me. When you play Minecraft.
In the past, one game couldn't have its own channel or show, but Minecraft has thousands, and Sky Does Minecraft, who made this video, is one of YouTube's most popular channels. It's got 11 million subscribers and over 2.5 billion views. And while people for years mistakenly associated YouTube with pet videos, other seemingly less popular genres quickly overtook them in terms of what things were uploaded and also what they watched. Last month, education videos were watched 5 times as much as pet and animal videos were. And nobody was ready for how these viral phenomenon were starting to grow and impact our mainstream culture. The first significant viral trend on YouTube was the photo a day trend. You probably remember that. And it quickly became very widely recognized and very often parodied. Do you guys remember this? The JK wedding dance was so popular and recognizable at the time that it ended up inspiring one of the central scenes for one of the US's biggest sitcoms at the time, the US version of The Office.
Okay. Did you see this? It was on YouTube.
Saw it.
YouTube was starting to bleed into our pop culture in this major way, and mainstream entertainment was also beginning to learn the power of web video to create these types of shared experiences with content that had originally been designed to be consumed in a different way. For example,
I dreamed a dream in time gone by.
Many years after Susan Boyle became an international star by her spread on the web, the line between TV and the web has become very blurred, right? Particularly in comedy. Not even a lot of people realize that in 2013, the top trending video of the year was originally created for a Norwegian TV show. Now, normally that would have been confined to mostly an audience in Oslo, but instead it became a top charting song in the US and a best-selling children's book. And in recent years, late-night comedians have become web video entertainers just as much as they are TV ones. It was no surprise that Jimmy Fallon's first sketch as the host of The Tonight Show was a parody of YouTube's first big viral sensation, The Evolution of Dance. And social video usage was impacting all aspects of our media world, including the world of advertising. Suddenly, instead of simply transposing the strategies of another medium to this new one, the creative industry was exploring approaches that were optimizing for this environment.
Hello, ladies. Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back at your man. Now back to me. Sadly, he isn't me. But if he stopped using lady-scented body wash and switched to Old Spice, he could smell like he's me.
So this was back in 2010. The Man Your Man Could Smell Like came to inspire this level of creative, interactive creativity with an advertisement that we'd never seen really at that scale or with that level of immediacy.
Hello, ladies.
Look at your man.
Now look at me. Back to your man.
Now back to me.
Sadly,
he isn't me.
But if he stopped using lady-scented body wash and switched to Old Spice, he could smell like he's me.
Look at that. Back up.
You're on the set of Will It Blend with the man your man could blend like.
What's in your hands?
I've got it.
It's a broom to clean your room.
Look again.
The water is now wine.
Anything is possible when your man smells like World of Warcraft bar soap.
I am on a horse. Moo. Cow.
And so brands were able to generate these pop culture moments, which, like many other aspects of YouTube, became things that we could actively leverage and connect with each other around. Because as John Green had put it, YouTube was solidly about people connecting to other people. And so this flurry of diverse viral activity started happening that demonstrated that. Sometimes it was really meaningful. In 2010, there were thousands of It Gets Better videos that got posted that used this ability to connect with each other to share personal stories of identity, empower younger generations. And these interactive experiences extended to ridiculous lengths. And our culture faced these questions and paradoxes that we'd never dealt with before, like, how can the most popular video also be the video that everyone agrees they don't like?
It's Friday, Friday, gotta get down on Friday. Everybody's looking forward to the weekend, Friday.
Rebecca Black's Friday was watched 200 million times. It was the top trending video of that year when it came out. And it made something obvious, and that's that our reactions and our connections with each other through and around content could actually be more powerful than the content itself. Because the audiences were now becoming a part of the media experience, and that led to these bigger and even less expected trends.
To level with you, this movie expires on December 31st, 2012. And its only purpose is to stop the rebel group, the LRA, and their leader, Joseph Kony. And I'm about to tell you exactly how we're going to do it.
Kony 2012, the documentary, was one of the most viewed videos on YouTube that year. It's been watched 100 million times, and it's the most viewed piece of activist content ever. And it got there by igniting this explosion of sharing of advocacy and of opinion. And it was not a passive experience, it was a highly active one. And it set a record at the time for the most views in a single day for a YouTube video. So this is Rebecca Black's Friday when it was at its peak, and at its peak of popularity. This is that compared to Kony 2012. So it was this incredible, incredible increase. And their strategy, Invisible Children, was made possible by this medium that was predicated on what their entire organization was about, which was participation. And so the number of phenomena that are driven by active participation of people from all over the world increased each year as things still went from dorm rooms to the heights of mainstream pop culture. You still had a bunch of kids, weird kids, thinking up something like the Harlem Shake and having inspired 2 million different versions of it that have now been watched over 4 billion times by people all over the world. And this kind of participation was happening at this global scale because we had just spent 100 years consuming media that had mostly been confined by the geographic borders of that determined its economic value, essentially, right? Which is why if I told you 3 years ago that we should all be investing in pudgy 30-something comedy rappers from Asia, you would have thought I was crazy.
Oppa Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. Oppa Gangnam Style.
And then you have something like this that happens, right? This video is in Korean, which is spoken by maybe 1% of the world's population. It's about a neighborhood in Seoul that most people don't know anything about, but it's become incredibly popular with people who have no familiarity with either of those things. It's got over 2 billion views. It's the most viewed YouTube video of all time. And no business would have bet on that, really, right? It just wouldn't have made any sense to do that. But that fact actually didn't matter anymore, right? And people that you'd never expect were finding these sizable audiences that thrive on the very things that make their work non-traditional. And so if you think that Psy is a sign of the music world being turned on its head, consider what this meant for many other aspects of our entertainment industry when YouTube creators, who are the masters of this platform, came into their own and grew to have more influence than many of the types of stars that I had grown up with. You have people like beauty tutorial celebrity Michelle Phan, who went from being turned down for a job at the Lancome makeup counter to being the spokesmodel for their entire company. You have major gamers like Markiplier, jacksepticeye, who now have more search interest on YouTube than major music stars. And there was a variety study last year that showed that these 5 creators have more influence than the top mainstream celebrities. And the professional creative community has grown more sophisticated and clever about the combination of advertising and content as well, right? Some small organizations have used the social power of video to expand their brand in meaningful ways.
What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great.
And while other companies like Red Bull, they took this idea to an entire other level, marrying brand and content in a way that had never really been explored before. And they saw incredible growth in their audience by, not overnight, but by producing things consistently and over time. There's a gap in this chart because if you try to plot out their viewership, and you include the Red Bull Stratos jump from space, it becomes unreadable. Because there were 50 million streams of that event. It was the most viewed live stream on YouTube. It was part extreme sports, it was part advertisement, part stunt, part science experiment, raising all these questions that we'd never really asked ourselves about the intersection of advertising and entertainment. And all this stuff taught us 2 things. There was now enough expertise that had developed on the web that a new class of professionals had emerged with a sense for what works and a sense for how to capitalize on these dynamics. But also, the people that were really succeeding at this stuff were asking a different question. Some of the best pieces of creative right now cleverly lean into the same basic things that made the promise of web video so exciting in the first place. And some of the biggest stars in the world got there not by being as highly produced or as traditionally talented as the people that we grew up watching on TV. They got there by being accessible and by being experts at generating connection and fans and building communities through YouTube and the social web. Because even now, this is still what it is all about. And so all week on the beach, all the stories that you hear are at their core really about how people are finding even more innovative and impactful ways of doing that. So that is your viral decade. And if you want to hear more about how sort of top creators create the things that they do, it's going to be kind of cool. Right after this, the slow-mo guys, at least one of them is over there, are going to be doing a thing on the big stage over there, and you should all come and join us. I'm gonna help host that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.